And now we've had our review about marketing, direct marketing, a bit about branding. We'll get into our main topic for this lecture, which is databases, which, as you recall, is one of the three elements required to make a program a direct marketing program. So we'll start with a definition at a customer database. Oh, I'm summoned to my door. Hang on a minute. So this is the definition. Sorry about the interruption. There's likely to be more of them. Customer database is a list of names to which the marketer has added additional information in a systematic fashion. So typically it's last name, first name, phone number, email address, your purchase history with the company can be added, although that's usually kept in a separate database called a relational database, which we'll be discussing. And the company may also have done a survey in which you've given them some more information, like your age or your income or what kinds of products you like or who knows what. But anyway, lots of information. Now, this is taking a step back from customer database, and we are going to talk about customer databases, but they're databases that have nothing to do with customers. In this case, a database is a collection of pieces of any kind of information that it's organized and used on a computer. And this any kind of information, it could be information about the weather, right? It could be information about earthquakes around the world. There are just thousands and millions of other kinds of databases that aren't customer databases. So, but the definition of that kind of database, again, is it's information that's organized so it can be easily accessed, managed, and updated. Okay, and computer databases typically contain aggregations of data records or files, such as sales transactions, product catalogs, and inventories and customer profiles. Typically, a database manager provides users the capabilities of controlling, inputting, read-write access, specifying report generation, and analyzing usage. Okay, so we sort of come full circle here. We started with talking about a customer database, like the database you have at one of your favorite retailers. And then we talked about the idea of just a general database. And then here at the bottom, where it says computer databases, this really means customer databases. Okay, I'm getting a bunch of texts here. Looks like my daughter's going crazy sending me texts. That's 4 or 5 altogether. Okay. Nothing urgent. Okay, so let's go back to a customer database now. And basically, the customer database is the heart of all direct and interactive marketing activities. It's the key to developing strong customer relationships and retaining customers. And that's just a cute little thing of a heart. There's a more graphic one coming up in a minute, but let's just look at another definition of database from Wikipedia. Here, I use Wikipedia a lot. I bet you do too. So let's just look at this overall definition. Again, organized collection of data stored and accessed electronically from a computer system. Okay, when they're more complex, they're often developed using formal design and modeling techniques. The database management system is the software that interacts with end users' applications in the database itself to capture and analyze data. It additionally encompasses the core facilities provided to administer the database. So, the whole thing is called the database system. And now, you'll see here at the bottom we have relational databases became dominant in the 1980s. These model data as rows and columns in a series of tables, and the vast majority use SQL for writing and querying data. Okay, so we're going to talk about relational databases, as I said, and hopefully make that clear in a little bit. But basically, Relational databases are where you have several different databases, okay, because it's more efficient to do it that way. And then they relate to each other by having one element in common, okay? And we'll look at that in more detail in just a minute. So databases, databases, databases. And it looks like I've done a wonderful job of getting rid of our. So I'm sure you're a little confused now about what a database is. I apologize if that's the case. This is fairly legible, I know, but this is a database, but this is a database that does not involve computers because it goes back to the 1920 U.S. Census. Okay, so this is a page from the U.S. Census from 1920, and for those of you who don't know, our Constitution requires that a census be taken in the U.S. every 10 years. And you've been reading in the news probably a fair amount that the next census will be in 2020, and there's been a fair amount of controversy over it. That's just my friend with a ray gun in the other room. Now, what we see here is columns and rows, okay? And we can't really read it very well, and I apologize. But you've got first names and last names and ages and addresses and information like that in the census. And this is the way databases were kept for thousands of years. They basically were written down in static format. And in fact, some of the earliest writing we know of, which is cuneiform, which was done in Babylon in the several thousand years BC. And, they were clay tablets where inventories were taken of grain and things like that and kept on these clay tablets. And that is maybe one of the very first databases. Now, you definitely have a record of everything here, but what you don't have is the ability to look at things up very quickly, nor do you have the ability to do any analysis or very easily. And of course, these are the advantages that eventually putting all these databases on computers would give you. So you can't really do very much with this information. And of course, then we kind of had a transitional age when computers kind of got involved and consumer databases were used for direct mail, for instance. They basically could print out labels that could be slapped onto the mail for catalogs that would go out to people. This would be during the 50s and the 60s and maybe in the 70s. And back in those days, these sort of basic computer databases would be occasionally updated. Maybe once a year you'd go in and sort of clean out the customers where catalogs came back, addressee unknown, or once a month, or eventually once a week, once a day. So the database was a tool for direct mail. Now today, with much more powerful computers and much more information about people, databases are updated in real time. Data from purchases, data from responses to emails or catalogs, etc., are fed into a customer relationship management system. They're analyzed, we get learning, and adapt communication and send out new improved communication, which is what we do when we test, for instance, different subject lines on an email. So we've gone from cuneiform tablets with a basic kind of writing and thousands of years ago, keeping track of things in warehouses or goods or something, goods shipped on a ship, how many barrels of olive oil, et cetera, and eventually these handwritten databases, which existed for thousands, hundreds of years, and finally with electronics, with electricity and computational power, all this information being kept on computers, and all of a sudden becoming much more vital and kind of yielding the information age, and this idea of big data, which you may have heard about. So basically, the amount of data times the recency of data times computing power equals new types of learning. And artificial intelligence takes this whole database analysis to a whole new level. And this is an article from my favorite publication, which is the New York Times, talking about artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence basically being incredibly powerful computers with lots of data, being able to do analyses about cause and effect. Okay, and here we have a group of researchers in the US and China has tested a potential remedy for misdiagnoses using artificial intelligence. Okay, so this was an article that was published a while back. They built a system that automatically diagnoses common childhood conditions. Just from inputting in the computer looks at all these other symptoms from thousands and millions of patients and gives a diagnosis, so that the doctor in the human brain isn't doing it. The doctor's getting the data and the symptoms and entering those, and the computer's doing the diagnosis. And this was 600,000 Chinese patients in the database who'd visited the hospital over an 18-month period. Okay. So we are working and developing artificial intelligence as well. Okay. And lots of implications for artificial intelligence. IBM Watson is one in our country that's pretty active. Okay, so I am just going to close this and go back to our presentation. Okay, and this is the heart as the symbol of the database in the marketing communications direct system. And basically the concept is this: as you know, blood goes into the heart and is pumped back out of the heart, and oxygen is added to it. And as oxygen is used by the body, the blood recirculates, goes back in the heart. And so information in, information and communication out is why the database is the heart of the direct marketing program.